North Node in Leo and in the 5th house. Introduction. With your North Node in Leo in the 5th house, your North Node is doubled down in the house ruled by its same sign. This means that what you have mastered in the past you have overdone to an extreme, and it may be, or may have been, if you are further along your journey, more difficult for you than most to disregard the opinions of others and take center stage. If you have personal planets in fire signs, this may come more naturally to you, but depending on your specific chart, it could be more challenging. Having your North Node in Leo in the 5th house means your South Node is in Aquarius in the 11th house. The sign, Leo, of your North Node signifies the qualities you need to develop, but the house, 5th house, indicates in what area of life you most need to express them. Likewise, the sign, Aquarius, of your South Node signifies the qualities you need to let go, but the house, 11th house, indicates from what area of life you most need to walk away. Qualities to cultivate: authenticity and individuality, confidence and pride, passion and enthusiasm, courage and risk-taking, fun and spontaneity, leadership and willpower, creativity, joy, independence, the inner child. Where to cultivate them: creative self-expression, pleasure and entertainment, play, hobbies, short-term romance, fun, drama, adornments and costumes, leisure time, children. Qualities to let go: giving in to peer pressure, emotional detachment and repression, aloofness, rejecting romance in favor of platonic friendship, escapism, avoidance, especially avoiding conflict, needing to gather more knowledge before venturing out, prioritizing the collective over the individual, especially oneself, eccentricity, intellectualism. Where to let go: communities and groups, technology, social media, friends, personal goals and aspirations, humanitarian ideals, collaborative projects, organizations and companies, innovation, charity, understanding the authenticity axis. Having the North and South nodes in the 5th and 11th houses and or in Leo or Aquarius places you on the authenticity axis. This axis deals primarily with placing the ego, Leo/5th, in society, Aquarius/11th, and finding a balance between them. It's a fixed axis of value and uniqueness, hierarchy and equality, performance and observation, the personal and the collective. You may see yourself as superior to others in some way, see everyone as equal, or both at the same time. In any case, your task is to find your role to play in the grand design. House 5 is ruled by Leo and the Sun, which, of course, is the giver of life around which our solar system revolves. Leo is the king, a noble and courageous leader who is both generous and strong, warm and authoritative. The 5th house encompasses all forms of pleasure, creative hobbies, children, play, and short-term love affairs. Opposite Leo sits Aquarius, ruling the 11th house and governed by Uranus, the planet of individuality and surprise. There's an inherent contradiction to Aquarius. The water-bearer is actually an air sign, and Uranus, planet of individuality, rules the 11th house of all humanity as one large group. Leo may be king, but Aquarius is Robin Hood, always rebelling against the established order for the cause of greater equality. However, they are both attached to their unique individuality, sometimes too attached. Your life path involves balancing your uniqueness with everybody else's, and finding a way to contribute your authentic self to the world without too much ego. I am special and so is everyone else is a major theme of your life. Your karmic classroom is in how you perform your identity in groups and society at large, and finding a way to do so that strikes a balance between authenticity and putting on a show. The fixed axes deal with value, so issues of self-worth, whether you love or loathe yourself too much, are signs of imbalance. With your North Node in the 5th house in Leo, you need to put yourself and your own desires first. You're a natural humanitarian with a love of justice and you know what it means to be dedicated to a cause greater than yourself. But you have to accept that, yes, we are all one, but oneness is as emotional as it is intellectual. You can't always go it alone, nor can you remain aloof and emotionally cold. In the past, you've tended to detach and intellectualize things, maybe even keeping relationships platonic when you really want more. Now, You need to not only get in touch with your emotions but also express them, especially creatively. Air internalizes things intellectually, fire asserts itself outwardly. Whenever you have an air south node and a fire north node, your natural tendency is to avoid conflict at the expense of intimacy. You've got to learn to put yourself on display in a way that still feels true to your values. Let go of your need for collective approval and instead express yourself creatively, regardless of what anyone thinks. Stop resisting the spotlight and friend-zoning your lovers. Connect with the children in your life and let yourself have fun. Egalitarianism is the central power of this axis, learning to see oneself as neither better nor worse than others, because self-loathing is just as unhealthy and egoistic as narcissism. Yes, you are a unique person with a special role to play in the greater design, but so is everyone else, and you need every musician to feel heard in order to play a beautiful symphony. And yes, everybody is equally important, including you. You, too, have an important role to play in the grand design. You might not know what it is, or you might not feel that what you do is special or important, but it is. Trust that. The authenticity axis is about balancing a light-hearted approach with a fearful one, love with friendship, elitism with equality, leadership with democracy, our natural children with adopted ones, individuality with conformity, rebellion with service, creativity and imagination with truth and observation, limelight with backstage, egoism with altruism, spontaneity with reflection, our individual goals with our collective dreams. This axis is about finding our part in the whole and learning to play it beautifully, with equal parts humility and confidence. Like all astrological axes, it's about balance. It isn't about feeling bigger or smaller than anyone else, but learning our right size in all situations. It means valuing one's own contributions as well as those of everyone else, including all living beings. It means knowing how to have fun for yourself while also doing something for the greater good. When you master this axis, you will have a healthy sense of self-worth, confidence without egotism, and intellectual humanism without a loss of emotional connection. Ultimately, it is about balance. Perhaps you are already on your way. Your quest, individuality. With your North Node in Leo in the 5th house, your quest is to develop your individuality. Your resource for achieving it is your observational skills. You bring a scientific objectivity into this life that helps you quickly and accurately assess the reality of a situation, most of the time. But you often don't know how to act on this information. That's what this lifetime's karmic lesson is about. You need to turn your observational skills on yourself so that you can discover who you authentically are. Then you'll be able to take action by creatively expressing what you've learned about yourself. This takes tremendous courage you're meant to develop. Your deepest need is love and acceptance, especially the acceptance of your peers. But your friends have never been able to support you enough for you to feel truly comfortable in your own skin. Instead, you have to love and support yourself the way you would a friend. The irony of this placement is that once you finally get in touch with your authentic self and develop the courage to share your creative self-expression with others, they will accept and support you. Your past, strengths, and excesses. Don't worry, you don't have to leave everything about the South Node behind. Again, it's about balance. The trick in balancing out the South Node is to embody the positive aspects while leaving behind the excessive and negative qualities. With a South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, detaching from your emotions and putting the collective before yourself comes naturally to you, but this is not your path this time around. In the past you spent a lot of time on the sidelines, watching others take center stage and enjoy the glory, even if it was a group effort. You may have spent past lives as a scientist, observer, an activist behind the scenes. Whatever you did, you sacrificed your personal identity to further humanitarian causes, even when it meant letting others take the credit for your ideas. You put your own creative energy in the service of collective dreams. Folks with this placement can go two ways: either they subdue their authenticity and blend into the crowd, or they rebel for the sake of rebellion and go off on their own. In both cases, they are seeking validation directly from others or validation through negation, in which others' rejection actually validates their sense of uniqueness, so they act out. Either way, you are defined by others' approval. When young, these folks have low self-confidence. You were likely born into an environment where you weren't free to be fully yourself. You never got to be a kid. Your emotions may have been invalidated or minimized. You learned early on that expressing your feelings was not safe, so you learned to suppress your emotions and be as objective as possible. Now you are likely to struggle emotionally as a result, living a life of detached aloofness and lack of self-awareness. You have a tendency to downplay emotions and especially conflict, leading to a false sense of peace and calm. Of course, repression always backfires. Do other people's emotions make you uncomfortable? Are you turned off by emotional self-expression and displays of passion or feeling? Are you uncomfortable expressing your own feelings, even if you give others permission to express theirs? These are symptoms of your South Node. You bring a scientific objectivity into this lifetime. You're observative and accurate. But as a result, you run the risk of becoming arrogant about your judgments. This attitude kept you safe in the past, but now it keeps you from having fun and truly connecting with others. Not only were you taught to repress your feelings, but you were taught to distrust your emotions, perhaps all emotion. To you, emotion is a messy human flaw that clouds people's judgment and leads them to self-sabotage. In the past, you suppressed your uniqueness in order to be accepted into the group. Your very survival depended on this. As a result, you failed to develop truly authentic and meaningful connections with others. You felt detached, both from yourself and from those around you. You didn't even really know yourself, so your relationships were impersonal. You didn't achieve real intimacy with others. You naturally came across as cold and unfeeling. You likely suppressed your creativity. Creativity is emotion, after all, and it just wasn't valued. Instead, you leaned into your logical side. Deep down you fear you'll never be good enough to venture out into the world and express yourself. Instead, you spend all your time in preparation. These are the kids who prolong their academic education so they don't have to go out into the job market. Of course, you'll never feel ready or knowledgeable enough. You have to develop the courage to put yourself out there anyway. You're naturally a great team player, good at networking and connecting with like-minded people. You are a real humanitarian. More than other placements, you run the risk of falling into groupthink. Unfortunately, because of this, you likely pay way too much attention to what others think of you. You tend to be anxious and need group approval. You're susceptible to peer pressure. As a result, you can lack originality due to being out of touch with yourself. You may depend too much on the support of others instead of lifting yourself up by your own bootstraps. You may often end up being part of a group you don't even like all that much. You end up feeling lonely even in groups. At the same time, you need a lot of freedom and independence. It's paradoxical, but your fear of not being accepted can result in intentional self-isolation. Much of your anxiety comes from fear of being judged, and it prevents you from taking creative risks. It is easy for people to take advantage of you because you truly don't have the type of ego that wants to take up space or get all the credit. You labor behind the scenes for the benefit of the team. However, this is an act of cowardice because in reality, you fear receiving attention. You've seen that people in the limelight don't just get all the credit, they get all the blame, too. They become targets for attack. They become scapegoats. You'd rather blend into the background than risk all that. You're likely a big-picture thinker and very future-oriented. This may result in some anxiety. South Node Aquarius 11th house people can easily get stuck in analysis paralysis, focused on collecting as much information as possible before they take action. They want to have all the facts before they make a decision. But the truth is that life just isn't like that. You're accustomed to dimming your own light so that others can shine. You may have come from a culture or cultures that value duty and obedience, prioritizing the family or group over individuality. Ironically, this results in feelings of isolation and loneliness. These folks are naturally very emotionally detached. Even in love, you don't experience a deeply passionate feeling so much as you apply your universal humanitarian love to a specific person. Thus, even your most intimate relationships can be quite impersonal. You easily fall into partnerships in which both people are strangers to one another, and are more platonic than romantic. In fact, the more personal the relationship, the more detached you can become. You're not like this without reason. In the past, your very survival depended on your ability to detach from your emotions and prioritize group success over self-expression. But due to spending so many lifetimes suppressing your personal power, you're ready to burst. Beneath your cool exterior lies a passionate, creative person who needs to be seen, heard, and praised for who they uniquely are. If this sounds scary to you, don't worry, it's supposed to. time for a new tactic. While this strategy worked very well for you in your early life or in past lives, it will now backfire on you. Instead, you need to stop defining yourself as part of a group and instead embrace your individuality. In this lifetime, it's not set up for you to be accepted easily, or if you are, you will find that your progress stalls. You may experience betrayal from the group, which forces you to strike out on your own and develop self-reliance. The path of the North Node Leo 5th house person is to embrace their individuality and self-expression, develop their hobbies, talents, and interests, showcase their creativity, and become a leader, especially among groups of children or in their hobby and interest groups, for example, the local theater or music scene. Your first task is to recognize your unique value and appreciate your individuality. It's about valuing yourself and your specific contributions, especially when it comes to creating a fun atmosphere for everyone to enjoy. You must learn to take center stage in your own life, make your own decisions, and live according to your own values. Your second task is to express your individuality. The 5th house is associated with creativity and self-expression, such as art, music, writing, acting, filmmaking, and more. Even if you have more scientific or intellectual hobbies and interests, finding a way to bring your unique perspective and creativity into them is key. Your third task is to lead others. This involves recognizing the unique value that other people bring to the table rather than seeing everyone as the same. Now that you're comfortable expressing yourself, you can inspire others with your vision and courage. In this lifetime, you're meant to cultivate enthusiasm, courage, and creativity and live as an individual. This lifetime is about stepping off of the sidelines and into the arena. You're meant to learn how to get what you want, not through detached judgment and calculated strategy, but through passionate involvement with life. Your soul learns to express itself freely, without worrying what others will think. You can learn and grow in this lifetime by listening to your heart more than your head. You may be so bound in logic and detail that you neglect your intuition and higher mind. But any logical position, taken to its logical extreme, becomes paradoxically illogical. Logic and fact-based decisions will no longer work for you in this life. You have to trust your gut. This means you will have to be courageous and take risks. You must overcome your fear of being seen. Deep down, you're afraid that others will see you as egoistic, but this is unlikely as they'll be too dazzled by your skills. Hiding yourself is a form of self-betrayal, a habit carried from the past. It's essential that you see yourself as, and become, the hero of your own story. The main challenge is to balance the all-too-human desire for recognition with a genuine need to contribute something meaningful to the world. You may encounter situations in which you're thrust into the limelight, and it doesn't feel natural or comfortable for you, even if you intuitively know it's where you need to be. This is where you grow. Leo embraces being the center of attention and loves drama, acting, and entertaining. Any act of creative self-expression is healthy for you. It helps you get to know yourself and your emotions, and it helps you share your light with others. Make sure to follow your joy. It may lead you to your career or to important others. Embrace your romantic side. Enjoy light-hearted affairs and short-term flings. There are great karmic lessons in them for you. You are fiercely loyal and make a dependable friend and partner. Unfortunately, you're likely to attract domineering types. These people are here to teach you the steep cost of repressing your authenticity for the sake of harmony. Children can be a wonderful catalyst for your own personal growth. When you spend time with children, your own inner child comes out to play. Reconnect with, and nurture, your inner child. Beware of conformity. You're meant to connect with people not by being part of a group but by standing out from it. Ironically, the more you embrace your unique individuality, the more others will like and accept you. This will actually support your community, as others benefit from your energy and enthusiasm. Developing charisma and comfort with receiving attention is also part of this placement. Embrace your extroverted side, even if you think you don't have one. Invest in your zest for life. Leo is also incredibly generous and kind-hearted, lifting others up whenever they get the chance. Don't be afraid to disagree with the group and express your opinions freely. You are learning to see the world from your own unique perspective, not through the eyes of others. You are a torchbearer. It doesn't work for you to dim your light, others need it so they can see. You're meant to be a leader. You need to get in touch with your authentic emotions and see them as guideposts to what you really want out of life. In this lifetime, you're meant to be a beacon of light and to inspire others with your creativity, courage, and individuality. Deep down, you wish to stand out and to be well known. This isn't just about you, you're meant to lead by example. When you follow your heart, others are inspired to do the same. Before you begin, I cannot emphasize enough that this process of psychological evolution does not require you to completely abandon your South Node and run willy-nilly into your North Node. When people do this, they often misinterpret their lessons and go off track. For instance, early on I tried to actively cultivate the qualities of my own North Node, but I still had so many habits, good and bad, in excess, from my South Node that I hadn't fully understood or gotten control of yet. Those South Node tendencies actively undermined and inhibited my ability to pursue my North Node, even though I truly believed that's what I was doing. So instead we must first seek to understand our South Node. Every quality, and every sign, has positive and negative manifestations, depending on its context, how it is used, and how evolved the person using it is. For example, with your South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, you're incredibly kind, but this kindness can also manifest as complacency. It's not about disowning your sweet nature and becoming an egomaniac, it's about understanding when and how to leverage your self-sacrificing tendencies. Maybe you don't need to silence yourself and let the group decide things for you, but you do need to use your diplomatic skills to voice your opinion without ruffling any feathers. Even more easily, we can misunderstand the lessons of our North Node, precisely because it is the most foreign to us, unless we have personal planets in the same placement or element, which makes it easier. In your case, someone with a North Node in Leo in the 5th house may think they just need to have a bunch of flings and be wild and crazy, but this would be an immature expression of that placement. Instead, waiting and looking for lessons about honestly expressing their feelings in their current relationships is a healthier and more effective way to start. Then when they encounter someone they're naturally interested in, they'll already have some understanding of how to express their passionate side without being reckless. Of course, this isn't a linear process. We don't check our lessons off one by one on a list until we get to the reward at the end, and we don't simply move from one end of the axis to the other, though I may sometimes write it that way for the sake of clarity. In reality, our life is our best teacher, our life is constantly bringing us lessons and reflecting our evolutionary stage back to us, showing us what we've mastered and what we still need to learn. Even more important than anything I've written in this book is that you judiciously reflect on how the themes of your nodal axis have manifested in your life specifically and in the people you've encountered, especially when there is a pattern, and there are always patterns. And just because a lesson repeats doesn't mean you didn't get it right the first time, it often means you're now dealing with the same subject at a higher level. Pay attention to your life. Both the South Node and North Node want the same thing, but they approach the desire from opposite perspectives. In the past, we've been pursuing our soul's deepest desire with the approach of the South Node, and the experience of never really getting what we want is what builds the pressure to pursue the North Node. The North Node path does not feel comfortable, safe, or familiar to us, it may even disgust us sometimes. But life will repeatedly deny us our deep desire until we learn and integrate the missing end of the polarity, the North Node we've left underdeveloped. In your case, your instinct to put the collective cause ahead of yourself only causes you to lose, until you stop collaborating like an Aquarius and start leading like a Leo. The only way you can win in this life is to create win-win situations where nobody loses, including you. Oftentimes we do not begin to turn towards our North Node until we've truly exhausted the strategies of our South Node. At that point, we have explored all the positive and negative effects of our South Node habits and instincts, and we're able to use them with discernment instead of compulsion. But this point may come only when we feel completely defeated by our life. Exhausted, we're finally forced to try a new strategy, and we end up gaining even more than our deep desire, more than we ever dreamed. The fulfillment of our North Node promise doesn't look like becoming an embodiment of only our North Node, but instead embodying the best qualities of both the South and the North Node. Connecting with life force and learning to lead. In past lives, South Node Aquarius 11th house people were part of groups and organizations larger than themselves in which decisions were made collectively. There were always other people around to guide them, so they never had to step up, take control, and make their own decisions by themselves. Even if they did make their own decision, they consulted a wide variety of people to solicit their opinions and perspectives before making a choice. As a result, they never learn to trust their gut. These folks are used to going with the flow, not realizing that the flow is usually someone else's opinion, need, or desire. They feel safer when they appease and cooperate with others. The most frightening thing would be to upset someone and elicit an emotional response. Of course, not only does this lead them down an inauthentic and unfulfilling path, but sometimes they are not discerning about to whom they give power. They can easily become victims of narcissists and sociopaths who enjoy controlling them. When they notice this happening, when they feel the temptation to go along to get along, the best strategy is to withdraw for a moment and get in touch with their own feelings and inner voice. Then their task is to trust that inner voice and act on what it tells them. Now North Node Leo 5th house people are learning to trust their instincts and follow their impulses. In the past, they grew accustomed to choking off the vital flow of inspiration. This habit is slowly killing them inside, draining their life of color, joy, and meaning. So they need to learn to reconnect with their inner voice. These natives are accustomed to perceiving power as outside of them. They are not used to being in control of their own lives, being the main character in their own story. As a result, they feel powerless. In reality, they're in the habit of giving their power away. They easily confuse anxiety with intuition and the inner critic with external authority. They've spent so much time internalizing others' perspectives that they don't know where they stand, and they easily fall prey to social norms. Remember, anxiety screams, intuition whispers. There are many resources and journal prompts to help you tell the difference included in the North Node Leo 5th House workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. South Node Aquarius 11th House people bring future-oriented thinking skills into this life. They see trends and opportunities before anybody else does. Since they're ahead of the curve, they can easily inspire and lead others to victory. With their innate sense of integrity and fairness for all, they have a tremendous capacity to benefit all members of a group equally. They can also prevent injustices before they occur. What North Node Leo 5th house people are learning is to be the leader of their own life. Once they learn to lead themselves, they can lead others, and potentially, the world. Stepping into the arena. South Node Aquarius 11th house people are so accustomed to standing on the sidelines, observing and gathering information, judging people who are in the arena, that they fail to get into the arena themselves. As American President Teddy Roosevelt said, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." There is no better expression of the North Node Leo/South Node Aquarius struggle. In this lifetime, experience beats information every time. South Node Aquarius 11th house people can still use the wisdom they've gained from observation and knowledge accumulation to strategize effective ways to achieve their goals, but their goals must be guided by their authentic dreams. It helps to use emotion to guide their overall direction and logic to figure out the steps to take along the way. South Node Aquarius 11th house people have spent many lifetimes, or the early part of this life, standing in someone else's shadow. But it's not just because they want to see their loved ones shine, it may also be because they have stage fright. They push other people out onto the stage so they can hide in the background or behind the curtain, secretly wishing it could be them in the spotlight. But their fear of being seen is really the fear of seeing themselves. It all comes down to a fear of judgment. Because they're in the habit of judging other people, perhaps harshly, they assume others are judging them the same way. This may be true and it may not be true, but either way, they have to learn to stop caring what other people think of them. They have to learn to see that opinions, even their own, are not facts, that everyone is entitled to have one, and that ultimately, none of them matter. Intention matters. If their motive to be in the spotlight is rooted in a need for approval, people will sense this and their attempts will backfire. But if their motive is to discover their joy and authentically share their discoveries with others, they can't help but win. Especially in their early years, South Node Aquarius 11th house people's sense of self was based on how others saw them. They may have gone along with this or they may have rebelled against it, but either way, they still defined themselves based on others' views of them. Now they must ask themselves, who am I apart from others' projections? In the past, these folks have tended to allow others to be part of their decision-making process, always consulting someone before taking action. This time around, they have to make autonomous decisions and value their own opinion more than anyone else's. They must trust their own judgment first. The reason this is challenging is because North Node Leo 5th house people have a deeply rooted sense of self-doubt that keeps them constantly disempowered and dependent on others. Deep down, they don't believe they really know best or can survive on their own. They're only right in the sense that no one knows what's best and all of us are interdependent. That makes their own opinions and instincts just as valid as everyone else's, and they have permission to roll with them. These folks have to remember that they're naturally vulnerable to others' approval, and the moment people disapprove, their instinct is to doubt themselves. But they can't let others get in their head. Trust yourself. Another reason South Node Aquarius 11th house people like to avoid the spotlight is not only that they fear being acknowledged by others, but that they fear acknowledging themselves. The moment they acknowledge themselves, they'll have to take responsibility for all their own unmet needs and desires, and face all the ways in which they've hurt and betrayed themselves. Then they'd have to figure out how to forgive themselves, and that feels much harder than forgiving someone else. The thing is, being in the spotlight wouldn't just mean having their goodness praised and reflected back to them, it would mean having to own up to their negative aspects as well, and accepting criticism and blame as a result. Many times these folks are too self-righteous to accept blame, and they don't want to face their demons. Not only do they resist integrating their shadow, they refuse to admit they even have one. But everybody does, and they're no better than anyone else. South Node Aquarius 11th house people need to learn to see themselves as players rather than spectators and as the main character of their own story. They need to dare greatly. Sheep mentality and the need for approval. South Node Aquarius 11th house people have negative karma around group membership due to past lives full of conformist behavior. They may tend to choose a social group and then adapt their personality to fit into it. They act out the part, but instinctively, the group detects that the South Node Aquarius 11th house person is not being authentic and rejects them. Even if they do manage to blend into a group, a decisive moment will come when their mask slips and everyone realizes who the South Node Aquarius 11th house person really is. Then everyone feels hurt and betrayed, and they no longer trust the South Node Aquarius 11th house native. The problem is that they're doing it backwards. North Node Leo 5th house people must learn to find out who they truly are before they choose a group. They need to choose with their heart, not with their head. On the flip side, this ability serves them well if they choose to go into theater or acting. That is a more appropriate outlet for their mimicking impulse. South Node Aquarius 11th house people desperately need approval from others. They've spent so much time being nobody that being somebody apart from the group terrifies them. It's not that receiving approval is a bad thing, the issue is not the reception, but the intention. When they behave in a way to specifically elicit approval, they're off track. But by simply being themselves, they'll naturally gain the approval they seek. In this lifetime, these folks are learning not to put their friendships ahead of their own individuality and creativity. In fact, friends can easily be a burden to them rather than an asset. For example, taking a friend's advice in this lifetime is unlikely to work out. What they need to do is learn to listen to themselves, to their own heart. Other times, South Node Aquarius 11th house people can be the ones pressuring their friends. They identify so much with their friend group that they overgive and then get disappointed when others don't reciprocate the way they expect. They're learning how to give selflessly, without expectation of return, and how to give within their energetic means. Deep down, they don't believe in other people, they don't believe others are capable of surviving and thriving on their own, so these folks step in and try to take care of everything for others. But in doing so, they disempower the people they love and make those people dependent on them. This makes them feel useful and needed at first, but it quickly turns into resentment. Instead, North Node Leo 5th house people are learning to validate the individuality, strength, and abilities of others, and themselves. Sadly, these folks can even live out their dreams vicariously through friends and partners, watching someone else live the life they long for. That's a sure sign they're off track. When they notice themselves feeling envious, they need to take note. In this lifetime, They're meant to take center stage and manifest their dreams through a strong sense of self and through asserting their will. In all group situations, these folks face the challenge of being who they are even when it means differing from the group. They believe that by doing so they will lose others' respect, but the opposite is actually the case. When they are brave enough to be themselves even when it means being different, others will support and respect them more. Their intense fear of judgment will not subside until they learn to care more about their own opinion of themselves than about others' opinions. The limits of logic. North Node Leo 5th house people are beginning to see that there are limits to logic and the scientific approach. The mind and logic are not so trustworthy in this lifetime, and will more likely lead these folks astray. These folks are so bound in logic and detail that they neglect their intuition and higher mind. But any logical position, taken to its logical extreme, becomes paradoxically illogical. This leads them to doubt and confusion about what to believe. Relying on logic and external information is actually a means for the South Node Aquarius 11th house person to avoid taking responsibility for their own life and decisions. Emotional repression can also lead South Node Aquarius 11th house people to numbness. They are therefore prone to depression, because their life becomes dry and boring, devoid of any real meaning or satisfaction because they don't just suppress their negative emotions, they suppress the positive ones too. But of course, all feelings go hand in hand. We can't experience the positive without the negative, and vice versa. It's important for South Node Aquarius 11th house people to learn to feel their feelings, and especially to feel them without worrying if others agree or how they'd react. This gets down to a deeper level of how they approach their emotional life. They think that if a feeling isn't fact-based then it isn't valid, but actually, feelings are facts in and of themselves, they're just information. What they're learning is that feelings, good or bad, are valuable in and of themselves, that experiencing their emotions is the point. Our feelings aren't just byproducts of events in our lives, but useful information that provides feedback on our actions and relationships. When we experience deep peace and happiness and love, we know we're on track. When we're angry or miserable, we know we're doing something wrong, or that someone isn't right for us. To follow their intuition, North Node Leo 5th house people need to tune into their feelings, especially how their emotions physically manifest in their bodies. Anything that gives them a sense of positivity, expansion, and vitality indicates a win. Whatever makes them contract, anxious, or pessimistic is a no. They must be careful to listen only to their body and their higher mind when they do this, not their lower, thinking mind or other people. Remember, anxiety screams, intuition whispers. Of course, this is easier said than done. These folks have spent many lifetimes invalidating their own feelings and following the facts and other people instead, and they may have grown up in a family or culture that reinforced this. It's difficult work to overcome this and hear our own inner voice. Practicing self-awareness, by journaling and tuning into the body, on a daily basis is the way to improve. There are many tips and practices for this in the North Node Leo 5th house workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. Emotion as information. South Node Aquarius 11th house people can easily get stuck in analysis paralysis, focused on collecting as much information as possible before they take action. They feel insecure and don't actually trust themselves to make the right call, so they want to have all the facts before they make a decision. But the truth is that life just isn't like that. We rarely, if ever, have access to all the information we need in order to make a decision. As Milan Kundera writes, we leave childhood without knowing what youth is, we marry without knowing what it is to be married, and even when we enter old age, we don't know what it is we're heading for. The old are innocent children, innocent of their old age. In that sense, man's world is the planet of inexperience. So we have to learn to simply make an educated guess, even when we don't feel 100% confident about the decision. We have to learn to be okay with the feeling that we're unprepared. That's just life. Another disadvantage to trying to collect all the facts first is that it robs our actions of vitality and authenticity. South Node Aquarius 11th house people often fall prey to stagnant, passive lives in which they've made all the right decisions, but none of their decisions were truly right for them. This is part of their lesson in authenticity, and as a result they're more likely than others to wake up with a midlife crisis, realizing they'd been living according to some formula of a correct life instead of following their own dreams. Ironically, their quest for knowledge is what can block these folks from their true desires. They end up indefinitely postponing action until the right conditions are met, but this just leads them to procrastination. Before they know it, the best opportunity has passed them by. Another issue is that this need to collect all the data leads South Node Aquarius 11th house people to distraction rather than action. They easily get led off track from their goal because some other idea or information has caught their eye, and they think they need to master all these tertiary skills before they can go after their main goal. They end up being a jack of all trade, master of none. What's really going on is that once they finally do start to pursue their dream, a distraction arrives in the form of their own resistance. These folks must learn to recognize when going down a rabbit hole or related topic is actually their own mind tricking them into avoiding their real goal. This is a test of character. They must get back on path as soon as they can in order to feel the vital life force within them. Sometimes following their heart means hurting someone who depended on them. While it's a painful decision, it is often not only the best thing for the North Node Leo 5th house person, but for the other person, too. Their walking away might be the only way the other person will learn to take responsibility for their own needs instead of outsourcing it to the North Node Leo 5th house person. We never know what other people's lessons are, but we are each responsible for our own well-being. South Node Aquarius 11th house people are used to going with the flow of others' ideas, but in this lifetime they're meant to be the creators of their own reality. This is an enormous challenge because even if they know what they want, they don't feel confident pursuing it. That's when they start looking for more information, and before they know it, they've wasted time and they're off track. Creativity can't be planned or worked on through a series of steps or the accumulation of knowledge. It's something we experience through doing, through seizing the creative impulse when it strikes us, not when we've scheduled it. And creativity is certainly not something that will always yield the results we expect. In the creative flow, we have to learn to let go of our expectations and simply explore. In reality, we can't even know what information we need until we start the creative process. North Node Leo 5th house people therefore need to just start the creative process and trust that they can pick up the knowledge they need along the way. If they run into a problem, they can always pause the project, do some research, resolve the issue and then get back into the process. They need to learn how to act with what knowledge they have now. When they learn to put aside their concerns and start taking action, they will begin to manifest their dreams. They need to remember that courage is not the absence of doubt, but the ability to take action in spite of doubt. Daydreaming and escapism. South Node Aquarius 11th house people spend more time daydreaming about being their authentic selves than actually becoming their authentic selves. They can live half their lives in their heads, imagining what it will be like to finally be who they want to be, accepted by the people whose acceptance they crave, loved by the people whose love they yearn for, capable of doing all the things they long to do, expressing themselves creatively and being admired for it. Their daydreams actually serve a helpful purpose. They help the North Node Leo 5th house person get in touch with their authentic selves and desires. While their daydreams are helpful signposts for what direction they need to take, they need to make sure to actually put their dreams into action. Otherwise, they waste years dreaming without actualizing, and they end up grieving over the lives they failed to live. Of course, they run into their usual problem of feeling they need to collect all the information before they'll be ready to take action, and they never feel ready. The gap between their dream and their current reality is just too big, and it intimidates them. It makes them feel hopeless and pessimistic. They begin to think, why bother? But giving up will only keep them stuck in the same disappointing reality. Their only option is to try, no matter how unprepared they feel. For these folks, their dreams won't just go away or fade with time. Their destiny is to pursue their heart's true desires, and it will never leave them alone. These folks are learning that any action, even the wrong action, is still better than inaction. Instead of prioritizing the big dream of the end goal, it's best for the North Node Leo 5th house person to focus on having fun with the small steps along the way. It's fine to use the big dream to guide their direction, but once they know the next step to take, they must learn to be present and enjoy taking that step. Happiness isn't something these folks should postpone, it's something they can seize now by enjoying the creative process of life, every step of the way. Avoidance. South Node Aquarius 11th house people can be extremely avoidant, especially when others are in distress or need them to act. They can get into their own zone and ignore what's going on around them, including the needs of their loved ones. They simply ignore anything unpleasant and assume that people will resolve their own problems. After all, it's what they do for themselves. What they don't realize is that not everyone represses their own emotions the way they do. In reality, ignoring a problem won't simply make it go away or resolve itself. When they do sense the emotional intensity of other people, it freaks them out, making them instinctively pull away. They just don't know how to deal with others' emotional needs, and it frightens them. They'd rather do nothing than make a mistake. Oftentimes they become ostriches, sticking their heads in the sand and ignoring the people they supposedly love when those people are upset. They think that any participation on their part will simply add fuel to the fire. They don't realize that it's their avoidance that's making things worse. When there's a conflict between two people, they both have to participate in a solution. One person can't solve it on their own. As they say, it takes two. All the South Node Aquarius 11th house person's avoidance says is that they don't care about the relationship or the other person. They leave and expect the other person to resolve things on their own, then they return as if nothing happened. All these unresolved issues in the relationship pile up, and their partner loses trust in them and eventually withdraws emotionally or physically because their needs aren't being met. As a result, these folks end up lonely and isolated, without a strong friend group or community, or others, especially family, become incredibly frustrated as they try to get the South Node Aquarius 11th house person to act. Others eventually feel they have to nag or threaten them just to get them to help. What South Node Aquarius 11th house people don't realize is that healthy conflict is a sign of a good relationship. The biggest red flag is when a couple, or even a pair of siblings or friends, doesn't fight. The foundation of any relationship is trust. We have to trust that the other person doesn't have the intention of hurting us, and that we're therefore safe to share our authentic thoughts and feelings. Then we're able to bring up issues as they arise, and through healthy, reasoned negotiation, we can resolve our conflicts together and agree to a compromise or solution. Then we're able to commit to that solution and hold ourselves, and each other, accountable for the results. Only then can we enjoy the benefits of a healthy relationship, and build intimacy through conflict resolution. But it starts with trusting the other person enough to engage in healthy conflict. Avoidance is the opposite. It says, "You can't trust me to be there for you." By contrast, working to voice our authentic concerns and find a solution together says, "I'm committed to making this work, even if it's hard sometimes." That's how the couple can transform a negative situation into a positive one, deepening their intimacy, trust, and commitment as a result. The South Node Aquarius 11th house person isn't just selfish, lazy, or scared. The truth is that they're not just avoiding others' emotions, they're avoiding their own. Other people's emotional displays elicit their own emotional reactions, and they fear losing control and hurting someone with their words or actions. What they don't realize is that their avoidance can be even more damaging. Because they fail to voice their own needs, South Node Aquarius 11th house people often end up feeling like the situation they're in isn't fair. They assume that others operate like they do, detaching and making logical decisions based on what everyone needs. But people can't read minds. These folks aren't used to voicing their own needs and desires, and subconsciously, they're angry that they even have to. But this is part of the North Node Leo 5th house lesson. They have to learn to assert themselves. They have to learn that everyone is responsible for taking care of and advocating for themselves. Deep down, the reason these folks avoid uncomfortable situations is because they don't actually trust themselves to have their own back. They're not used to asserting their own boundaries and desires, so they feel any conflict they enter is one they'll automatically lose. They'll just capitulate to what the other person wants, so why bother? The truth is that only they can stand up for themselves, because only they know what they want. They can't expect others to magically know where their boundaries are and what they want. They have to communicate these things. North Node Leo in the 5th house is about developing the courage to do so, instead of chickening out and running away. That requires knowing what their own boundaries are as well as knowing what their authentic desires are. Even if they have a strong desire, it easily falls away when someone else, especially someone they care about, expresses a desire of their own. But deep down, their authentic will is still there, waiting. Types of desire. South Node Aquarius 11th house people have some of the most intense conflicts between the head and the heart. More than most signs, these folks run the risk of following someone else's dream instead of their own. But to paraphrase the Bhagavad Gita, it's better to fail in one's own purpose than to succeed in someone else's. These folks are learning to listening to their hearts, trust their instincts, and take the risk to live authentically in spite of what seems logical or what others say. The trouble is distinguishing between the competing voices in their head. This is where it helps them to understand the layers of desire. There are, of course, the superficial desires of the human animal, to seek pleasure and avoid pain. This is pure hedonism, to enjoy the whims of the physical body without regard for long-term consequences or effects on others. Then there is the egoic mind, which wishes to preserve a particular self-image, through the status of beauty, money, job, prestige, or moral high ground. This is where we all get most easily lost. The South Node Aquarius 11th house person's egoic mind usually wants to preserve their self-image as selfless and being accepted by a particular group. But this is a juvenile way of masking their moral posturing and deceiving both others and ourselves in order to belong. They are trying to preserve their self-image as a good person at the expense of actually doing the correct, honest thing. More deeply, there is the soul or higher self, the part of us that operates beyond the egoic mind, the watcher, the observer. It's the part of ourselves we tune into during meditation, the intuition that speaks to us in whispers. This is the source of our deepest desires, the ones that transcend the egoic mind. It wants what is in the highest good of all, including ourselves. When North Node Leo 5th house people come to understand this part of themselves, and tune to that, they will see there is no such thing as you or me, better or worse, no need to judge, no need to be accepted because there's no such thing as rejection from the whole. There are many resources and journal prompts to help you tell the difference included in the North Node Leo 5th house workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. South Node Aquarius 11th house people want the best outcome for everyone, including themselves. They just don't know how to accomplish it because they erroneously see the world as black and white, believing that one person's win is necessarily another person's loss. They've forgotten the law of dependent arising. What's good for one person is usually good for others, too, and a rising tide lifts all boats. They need to find a way to create win-win situations in which they can still help others without having their boundaries violated. When they learn to let their superficial and egoic desire to appease and belong pass, by calmly bringing awareness into them and letting them go, they will be able to slow down and tune into their true, authentic, deep desires. From there they will be able to pursue genuine fulfillment instead of chasing their own tails. The 11th house deals with our hopes, wishes, and dreams. As a result, South Node Aquarius 11th house people are strongly in touch with their own desires. Once they learn to cast off everyone else's ideas, their dreams can't remain mere dreams. Their purpose now is to manifest those desires through Leo's fiery action. Once they whittle their thoughts down to their own authentic desire, they'll know what to do. Their logical mind will present the next right step. They just have to take the risk of the first step, and life will conspire to show them the next and the next and the next. Their job is to take each opportunity as it comes. It helps these folks to hold on to a principle or value that can guide them in their decision-making, whether it's truth, equality, authenticity, or anything else that inspires them. This will give them the courage to continue in the face of adversity, especially when their cause is bigger than themselves. Much of the time, their inner conflicts come down to creative passion versus safety. Can you guess which one is right for them? When they choose safety, they lose. This lifetime is about creativity, passion, and risk-taking. If this is a challenge, it's helpful to remember that one of the top regrets of the dying is living a life others wanted them to live instead of following their authentic desires, as well as not taking more risks. But be careful. Oftentimes we think we are following the North Node when really it is our mind's sneaky way of keeping us safe while presenting the illusion of courage. When in doubt, it helps to choose the option that makes them feel most alive. Sometimes that means choosing what makes them most afraid. Once North Node Leo 5th house people learn to clarify their desires, decision-making becomes much easier. Following their bliss is essential for these folks. Willpower. The truth is that South Node Aquarius 11th house people are naturally weak-willed. These folks easily internalize other people's emotions and desires, but their authentic will is always lurking underneath. They just have to practice tapping into it. Then comes the hard part, acting on it. Part of the challenge of exerting their willpower is pushing through resistance. These folks will experience a lot of inner resistance and inertia, but they must realize that it's part of the process. As long as their desire is an authentic one, the resistance will be coming from their ego, which is trying to keep them small. If the desire is not authentic, the resistance may come from outside of them, which is life's way of saying, not this way. Sometimes an obstacle is divine redirection, and sometimes rejection is divine protection. Often these folks are afraid that asserting their will could rob others of their own satisfaction and happiness, and selflessly, they're willing to give up what they want so that others can be happy and peace can be maintained. After all, they don't feel as strongly as the other person appears to feel. But in so doing, they betray their own desires, their own peace, their own selves. In the long run, this actually undermines their relationships, because the truth comes out eventually. So it's better for these folks to assert their will early on, rather than waiting until they can't hold it in anymore. This is where their South Node Aquarius 11th house talent for detachment can come in great handy. They just have to control it and use it sparingly. When they encounter a conflict of wills, that's a great moment to detach and look at the situation objectively. They can accurately assess everyone's desires and considerations, then find a way to compromise and align everyone's will for the good of all involved. The essential thing is to factor their own will into the equation. These folks tend to become paralyzed and insecure when they detach too much, because they turn reflective and focus inwardly and myopically. Learning to limit this and shift their focus to asserting their willpower outwardly can do wonders for their confidence and happiness. Stubbornness versus commitment. The authenticity axis is a fixed axis, which means these folks struggle with stubbornness. With the South Node Aquarius 11th house attachment to facts and knowledge, people with this placement can fail to pivot even after they realize they need to. Their attachment to the facts or meeting certain prerequisites becomes a stumbling block. Oftentimes, their knowledge of why they should continue in a certain situation overpowers their instinct to leave, and leads them to stagnation. Much of the time, their knowledge is a mask for their fear of change and lack of self-confidence. This is how they self-sabotage. These folks tend to get stuck on what they think they know. They get rigidly attached to a decision they made based on a few initial facts. For such curious knowledge seekers, they can sometimes neglect to seek out more information, especially emotional information. They'll assume that because their friend once said they don't like tacos, that their friend doesn't like Mexican food. They need to remember to check back in before leaving their friend out of their Cinco de Mayo party. Drawing broad conclusions from limited information just doesn't work out for them. Maybe their friend really doesn't like Mexican food, but the emotional aspect of being included is more important than their bad taste. When North Node Leo 5th house people integrate emotional considerations into their plans, they add a crucial new dimension to their decision-making. South Node Aquarius 11th house people just don't realize how much they are loved and cared for, and therefore don't realize how much of an emotional impact they have on the people in their lives. It's safe for them to assume they matter to others more than they think. Ironically, these same people tend to have commitment issues. Because they are so equalled and easily bent to the wills of others, they have a secret fear of being smothered or overpowered, especially in romantic relationships. So they may be in a relationship but resist true commitment. If not physically then emotionally, they may detach or have emotional affairs if not physical ones. What they must realize is that it's not commitment or involvement that threatens their freedom and autonomy, it's their own weak will and lack of boundaries. It's their inability to speak their authentic desires, disagree with the other person, and assert their willpower in an effort to compromise. That's why these folks actually do better with a partner who is similar, but not exactly the same as them. They're aligned enough to compromise, but different enough to challenge the North Node Leo 5th house person to learn to assert their individuality. Ego. South Node Aquarius 11th house people are very humble, a quality that is admirable and through which they lead others by their mere example. More than any other placement, they struggle with the natural need for attention and an aversion to egotism. It's hard for them to balance their desire for recognition with genuine humility. They feel a lot of guilt and even shame around their ego-driven behaviors. These folks feel guilty for needing or wanting attention, seeing it as egoic, selfish, or otherwise impure. They may feel they don't deserve attention, perhaps because no one gave them enough when they were young, and create a self-fulfilling prophecy in which they actively reject or avoid attention. In truth, we all need attention. Ours is a hyper-social species, and receiving attention isn't simply a matter of ego, it's one of our most basic needs. We just have to go about it in the right way. In fact, babies who don't receive attention and affection suffer from marasmus, slowly dying from lack of attention even when all their nutritional and other needs are met. By acknowledging and embracing their need for attention, and removing judgment from it, North Node Leo 5th house people can begin to heal this wound. South Node Aquarius 11th house people are very aware of the superego dictates of shoulds and of the ID impulses of needs, but they have long since fallen out of touch with the ego that mediates between the two. As a result, they struggle to prioritize their own pleasure, desires, and ambition. The truth is that ego is not only a bad, evil thing. The ego is simply one specific perspective from which the whole views itself. Every egoic perspective is not only valid, but an essential component of the whole. And each one must do its part. This is a different idea than the layers of desire described above. One great way to provide their ego an outlet is to communicate what they're experiencing on all these levels. For instance, when a partner isn't tending to their needs, they can say, "I know I shouldn't be bothered by this, but it really hurts me when you don't meet this need I have. I want a more fulfilling relationship with you and it would help if you could do X." By communicating the big picture, group-oriented perspective of the superego along with the needs of their ID and ego, they can bridge the gap between individual and relationship. Of course, the ego doesn't just go away because we ignore it. It gets louder and louder until it has no choice but to explode in spontaneous outbursts. These folks often don't know where their anger is even coming from, but it's from repetitive violation of their authenticity and desires. The negative manifestations of the ego can be seen as communiques from the wounded inner child. This is the part of us whose valid needs and desires have not been met. Getting in touch with the inner child and reparenting ourselves isn't only about being soft and nurturing, it's also about learning to meet our egoic needs in a healthy way. This comes through self-validating thoughts, speech, and behaviors. The path of North Node Leo in the 5th house is to develop a healthy ego, to heal their wounded inner child. Humility hypothesis. South Node Aquarius 11th house people do have a lot of confidence in some ways, because they have collected so much knowledge and experience. However, just when they feel confident in something, it backfires on them somehow and they don't get the results they were expecting. The fact is that knowledge can only ever be based on the past, not the future, and when they take decisions based on the past, they limit their future potential. Instead, they have to learn to take leaps of faith. They have to be willing to not know, to follow their heart even if they can't logically rationalize their decisions. They have to be humble and be willing to be wrong. It helps to see every belief as a hypothesis and every decision as an experiment. It might work out the way they expect and it might not. Either way, they'll be fine, and in any case, they'll gather more information. This comes back to the issue of confidence. North Node Leo 5th house people need to develop confidence in their own resilience. Very few mistakes in life are truly irreversible and non-recuperable, let alone the end of the world, which, by the way, still hasn't happened yet. Even if the experiment turns out badly, they'll be okay. What these folks need is a childlike sense of curiosity. Children get to explore the world and do not come with an inborn sense of fear. Fear is, rather, something the adults around instill in them. And kids with helicopter parents end up more vulnerable rather than resilient. North Node Leo 5th house people need to reparent themselves to be brave, not to fear mistakes. Once they embrace their inner child, North Node Leo 5th house people will experience all the pleasure, excitement, discovery, magic, and creativity they missed out on as kids. Embracing the inner child and enthusiasm. South Node Aquarius 11th house people often didn't have much of a childhood. Whatever happened, they weren't allowed to be kids. They were likely born into an environment where they weren't free to be fully themselves. Their emotions may have been invalidated or minimized. They learned early on that expressing their feelings was not safe, so they learned to suppress their emotions and be as objective as possible. Now it's their task to fix this, to be childlike, to see the beauty and novelty in life, to follow their curiosity, to play and have fun. Indulging in games with friends, family, and even strangers can be healing and invigorating for these folks, giving them the confidence to move forward in other areas of life. Whether they join a local sports team, play chess in the park with the old folks, or host a weekly game night with their friends or family, it helps them channel their energy and aggression into light-hearted social fun. It also helps them bond with others in a way that isn't too emotionally threatening to them. There are suggestions and resources included in the North Node Leo 5th House workbook on northnodesignandhouse.com. What helps most is to view every situation as an experiment or a game. These folks are excellent strategists, but their insecurities and lack of confidence can get in the way of acting on their brilliant ideas. That's when they seize up in their analysis paralysis. When they feel insecure about something, their best bet is to take a step back and see it as a game. Their ability to detach becomes useful here, but the trick is to turn off their insecurities while turning on their passion, curiosity, and excitement. Because they're not attached to winning, they can actually keep the cool head needed to play the game while still enjoying themselves. When they view situations as games, they're able to play and have fun while still implementing their strategic mind. It allows them to let go and actually enjoy the process instead of worrying about the end results. Then they always win. In fact, children in general are good karma for these folks. Being with children puts them in touch with their own inner child. It helps them to practice recognizing and acknowledging each child's individuality and value. A profession in which they get to work with kids can be very rewarding. These folks have a remarkable talent for inspiring enthusiasm in others, and this reaps benefits in both their personal and professional lives. The key is to tap into their own enthusiasm first. Often, their South Node Aquarius 11th house instinct is to communicate just the facts, mom, and leave out any emotional detail or nuance. But in this lifetime, it benefits them, and others, to imbue their communication style with emotion and enthusiasm. Once they do this, they'll naturally communicate with their heart, not just their head. Then they'll effortlessly inspire others. On the flip side, South Node Aquarius 11th house folks can be professional ghosters. Once they've decided against a relationship, they leave the person hanging with no explanation. Not only is this cruel, but it's cowardice. They fear confrontation and refuse to take responsibility for mature emotional communication. Most, if not all, of the time, the best thing we can do for someone is give them the respect of an honest explanation, even if it's a blunt one. There's nothing wrong with saying, "Thanks, but I just don't feel a spark with you." These folks are learning to communicate more authentically, both for themselves and for others. When they are in a relationship, they can still shy away from sharing emotions they perceive as negative. They fear the other person's emotional reaction, and usually they blow it out of proportion in their head. The reaction is rarely as bad as they imagined it would be. When it comes to communicating emotions, the North Node Leo 5th house person's intentions must be sincere and loving. We can still express anger and frustration from a loving place, from a desire to be understood and to understand in turn. These folks will only run into trouble when their motive is to punish, rage, belittle, or otherwise be self-righteous. In relationships, it helps to learn to speak all the love languages: physical affection, words of affirmation, gifts, quality time, acts of service. Expressing themselves and giving to others in this way can be both healing and rewarding for them, because it provides another outlet for their creativity and emotion. Giving selflessly. In past lives, South Node Aquarius 11th house people got used to being taken care of by their tribe and receiving support. Now it's their turn to experience the pleasure of being the giver. Truly selfless giving invigorates them with creative energy. However, if they give with a silent, or vocal, expectation of receiving something in return, they will only be disappointed. These folks can have a bad habit of keeping score, mentally tallying all that they have paid the other person and what others owe them. Giving without thought of return is not instinctive for them. As a result, they tend to give in spurts. They go through periods in which they give a lot just to see what they get. Of course, it's never enough for them. Paradoxically, giving without expectation actually sets North Node Leo 5th house people up to receive more. When they attach an expectation, they subconsciously limit what they're able to receive. But when they loosen those restraints, the other person is free to return even more to them. Because of this instinct, these folks often end up in situations where others give and give to them, but they never even notice. They tend to undervalue others' contributions and don't acknowledge the efforts that other people make for them. The fact is that they actually just don't enjoy receiving as much as they enjoy giving. It is the act of giving itself that fulfills and energizes them. This includes giving praise, gratitude, and acknowledgement of others' contributions. Others might not always give to them the way North Node Leo 5th house people want them to, but they must acknowledge others' efforts anyway. As well as learning how to give, these folks are learning how to truly receive, with genuine gratitude and specific appreciation for others' unique contributions. They're learning to see the specialness of each individual person, including themselves. They are no longer meant to see everyone, or everything, as a type or part of a group. Instead, they are meant to appreciate the uniqueness and specificity of every individual being. Ironically, overemphasizing equality doesn't just minimize their own individuality, it also invalidates others' uniqueness. Practicing appreciation will infuse their lives with greater love and vitality, and they will start to sense the value in every being and interaction. Sometimes when South Node Aquarius 11th house people do give, they begrudge the way others receive their gifts. They develop a martyr complex in which their selfless giving becomes an ego identity rather than a genuine expression of unconditional love for someone. The key word is unconditional. They must learn to give without attaching conditions to that gift. Learning the art of selfless giving is what helps North Node Leo 5th house people cultivate a genuinely loving environment. Choosing a partner. Because of their humility and desire to serve humanity, South Node Aquarius 11th house people can easily end up in relationships with egoistic and/or domineering types. What they often don't realize is that the dominant partner can actually feel jealous of the South Node Aquarius 11th house person, seeking to keep them under their thumb so they can't outshine them. Because of their easygoing nature, people often take advantage of them. Then they resent the lack of respect. The problem is that these folks are so easygoing that they don't mind adapting to the other person's agenda. Without realizing it, they easily suppress their authentic self and desires. After a while, they become resentful. After all, they've spent all this time changing to be the perfect partner to this person. Why doesn't this person do the same thing for them? What they don't realize is that the relationship itself is challenging them to recognize and step into their own authentic power and advocate for themselves. Yet when the South Node Aquarius 11th house person's true self comes out, their partner feels deeply betrayed by all the lies, spoken and unspoken, and the foundation of trust crumbles beneath their feet. It isn't fair to the partner who opens themselves up only for the South Node Aquarius 11th house person to suddenly change their mind and leave, physically or by detaching emotionally. In fact, it's likely they've been on both sides of this dynamic. The truth is that deep down, South Node Aquarius 11th house people don't trust that their authentic self is lovable. It's cliché, but it's true. We have to love ourselves first. But it's not necessarily because our self-love is more important or powerful. It's because we won't be able to accept love from another person until we prove it to ourselves first. Only then will we be able to let our guard down, show someone who we are, and know that even if it doesn't work out, we'll be okay, because we love ourselves. Our self-love and self-acceptance is the safety net we need to venture out into the world and into relationships with others. We need to trust that we've got our own back. Otherwise we're constantly at the mercy of other people. North Node Leo 5th house people can really only make their relationships work by tuning into both their own authentic self and working to understand the other person, not as simply a human being, but a unique individual with specific goals, dreams, needs, and insecurities. When they honor the uniqueness of the other person, without trying to adapt to or become like them, the other person feels seen and is able to reciprocate. Then the North Node Leo 5th house person can know for sure whether this person is the right match for them, and whether their dreams and values are truly aligned. With their logical approach, South Node Aquarius 11th house people can fall into the trap of choosing someone who looks good on paper but isn't good for them emotionally. The logical option usually isn't right for them in the long run, and not just in love, but in career and other areas of life too. The person, or anything else, that truly makes them happy usually surprises them. It's usually not the type they thought they'd want. Deep down, they know how they truly feel, but because they're so stubborn and attached to what they're supposed to do, they override their true feelings. The best partner for these folks is someone who recognizes their unique talents and individuality and lifts them up, encouraging them to take center stage and cheering them on from the sidelines. Passionate relationships. The biggest risk for these folks in relationships is losing the initial passion, if there even was any, and slipping into a platonic friendship. They will either be attracted to their shadow, someone who expresses their repressed traits via passion, egotism, or drama, or to an accomplice, someone who enables them to repress their emotions and reactions. Sometimes they find both in the same individual. The South Node Aquarius 11th house tendency is to repress their own identity in order to center their partner. But this sets up an imbalance they eventually grow to resent. Instead of adapting to the other person and putting their identity first, these folks need to take a step back, onto center stage. They need to give the other person enough breathing room to see and appreciate who they uniquely are, so they can express their appreciation for the North Node Leo 5th house person. Oftentimes they resent that others don't automatically do this, but the truth is, they don't often give others the opportunity to do so. Then they end up villainizing the person for being self-absorbed, when they were the ones fawning over them. Sadly, they can remain stuck in the wrong relationship, living in denial about the reality of their situation, because they're both emotionally detached and clinging to their ideals. It takes some brutal disillusionment for these folks to quit. Even then, they'll tend to remain in the relationship while detaching emotionally from it. Instead, they must learn to utilize their creative energy to change the dynamic. In this lifetime, they're meant to infuse their life with romance, play, and creativity. Then their life is full of love. There are multiple relationship houses in astrology, and the 5th house rules the fun, short-term kind. That doesn't mean North Node Leo 5th house people are only meant to have flings, but they will have a lot of fun and gain a ton of wisdom through their more light-hearted interactions. Bringing creativity, spontaneity, and playfulness into the bedroom can be marvelously healing and enlightening for these folks. What they really need to commit themselves to is not any specific person, but to active participation. They must be willing to give their all to a relationship, to communicate their emotions, to lighten up and have fun. From unity consciousness to separation consciousness. At the heart of every religion and spiritual faith, and even of physics and biology, is the knowledge that all that lives emerged from a single source, whether we call it God or the singularity that preceded the Big Bang or life itself. This vague idea is almost universally agreed upon. What Buddhism calls unity consciousness is not only the intellectual awareness of this inherent oneness, but the emotional, psycho-spiritual experience of it, and it is the subject of enlightenment. Yet we are all born into physically separate bodies and raised in cultures and societies that teach us separation consciousness, a state reinforced by our egoic minds and their instinct for self-preservation. This is the belief that all we are is separate from other people, other animals, the earth itself, and the universe at large. When it comes to the nodal axis of astrology, it is my belief that some are born with easier access to unity consciousness than others due to past lifetimes spent in spiritual study, emotional enmeshment, or another kind of merging. These include the water south nodes and some of the air and fire south nodes, including the south node in Aquarius in the 11th house. Although we may forget unity consciousness, these folks are among those who subconsciously remember it and can easily access it. It is good even for these placements to strive for the experience of unity consciousness. But once remembered, they must confront the harsh truth of physical reality, that we exist in a material world, in separate bodies. Separation consciousness is often dismissed as an illusion of the physical world and egoic mind, but we incarnate separately for a reason, to learn our nodal lessons, to evolve consciousness, to ascend spiritually. We are here precisely to experience separation. While most of the world needs to learn unity consciousness, for North Node Aquarius 11th house people, their lesson is also about separation consciousness. They have spent so many lifetimes dissolving their own willpower for the sake of the group that they have not adequately experienced the pleasure, vitality, and willpower of having a separate ego, self, and destiny. It is beautiful and fulfilling to be part of the whole, but each part must also be recognized as beautiful and fulfilling in itself. That is the point of separate incarnations. We each have a duty to know, respect, care for, and fulfill the highest potential of the part of the whole that is uniquely ourselves. This is one reason Know Thyself was inscribed upon the Temple of Apollo at Delphi. It is in many ways our sacred responsibility. The ultimate fulfillment of spiritual awareness may just be that both unity and separation are true, and to hold both states of consciousness simultaneously as we move through life, elevating neither one over the other but learning to live as both. The gold in the shadow. Before we conclude, I want to remind you to appreciate the gold in the shadow of your South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house. One of the most beautiful things about people with the South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house is that they are so humble and easygoing. They are truly relaxing to be around because they are never trying to control or dominate others, unless other placements in the chart contradict this. They have an abiding love and acceptance for all humanity. As true humanitarians of the zodiac, these folks have an authentically humble outlook and desire to help and uplift others. South Node Aquarius 11th house people often dedicate themselves instinctively to a cause bigger than them. They're able to move through life feeling almost high because they see and experience unity everywhere they go, in every person, animal, plant, and insect they meet. Our South Node isn't only about what we get wrong or do to excess, it also includes what we've mastered and can teach to others. No quality is wholly good or bad, but each one has both a light and a dark manifestation. Once we learn how to express our South Node in a healthy way with good boundaries, aware of its dark side, we can reach back for the gold in the shadow and share its light. We can teach others the skills we've mastered, leading by example and helping others learn their Aquarian lessons. Once it is balanced, our South Node also becomes the foundation for our North Node. As with everything, each archetype contains the seed of its opposite, like the yin-yang symbol. It is precisely because South Node Aquarius 11th house people understand human equality so well that they are able to turn this attitude inward and finally see in themselves the value they've hitherto only seen in others. It is through this balance they can finally achieve the sense of belonging for which their soul deeply yearns. Further practice and inquiry. I hope this ebook has been illuminating for you on your personal quest for growth. In all my work, my goal is to help raise the collective level of human consciousness. We are each responsible for doing so, by taking responsibility for our own individual piece of consciousness. With the information I've communicated here, I hope you feel more empowered to take care of your own. I wish to communicate a few more things to look for which may be helpful. First, I didn't just want to dump theory on you. As I wrote these ebooks, I realized there were so many references, books, videos, podcasts, as well as reflection questions and practical actions, that could help you think and problem solve in even more ways, in ways I didn't have the space to delve into in this ebook alone. Conscious of the fact that reading theory is just the tip of the iceberg, I wanted to give you practical ways of applying your new knowledge to your life specifically. That's why I created a workbook for each nodal placement on northnodesignandhouse.com. Recommendations for books, movies, videos, podcasts, and more provide food for thought and explorations of the Leo 5th house/Aquarius 11th house themes. Journal prompts and activity recommendations lead you off of the screen and into the world, where you can be empowered to make a difference in your own life. Even though this book series on the nodes specific to sign and house is a huge leap forward in the collective project of astrological study, each chart is so completely unique that there are still more factors that may influence your specific experience. For some, the path is easier, for others, it seems to be blocked at every turn. While I don't want to overwhelm you with information, focusing simply on the information above is already an enormous project. If you ever feel blocked or confused, here are a few keys in your chart to consider. First, consider your big three, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant, in context of your nodal placement. Ask yourself, why would a soul with these nodal challenges choose a personality with these big three? For example, a North Node Aquarius 11th house person is most likely to have an Aries ascendant, and let's say they have a Capricorn Sun with a Pisces Moon. With an Aries ascendant, the midheaven is likely to also be in Capricorn, so the Sunday may be in the 9th or 10th house and the Moon may be in the 11th or 12th. Clearly this person needed the headstrong mask of an Aries. But they needed the sensitivity of a Pisces Moon to experience the depth of emotion required for Leo qualities to develop. The Capricorn Sun indicates the need for a strong ego, which also counterbalances the weak ego nature of the Pisces Moon. With the midheaven in Capricorn, as well as the Sun placed nearby, career is important to this person. With the ingenuity of their ascendant and South Node, they are likely to be inventive and a trailblazer. The North Node emphasizes this need for leadership and willpower. However, the Pisces Moon causes them to attune to others, perhaps at the expense of their own self-assertion. Second, consider any aspects made to the nodes, less than 4 degrees. You can find plenty of articles online by searching for any relevant aspects, but for the sake of simplicity I will note here that harmonious aspects, trines and sextiles, help, conjunctions challenge, and squares indicate a skipped step, a karmic lesson one completely missed and must redo. In our hypothetical Capricorn Pisces chart, let's suppose they have a Scorpio Mars squaring the nodal axis. Remember, an aspect to one end of the nodal axis is simultaneously an aspect to the other end, Mars representing self-assertion. The challenge of willpower is even bigger for this person than others with this nodal placement. In light of the South Node in Aquarius in the 11th house, the Scorpio Mars is likely to be underdeveloped and passive-aggressive, and in the 8th house, it hides its aggression and desires from others. Third, the rulers of the nodes carry enormous weight. In your case, The south node is ruled by Uranus and the north node is ruled by the Sun. The houses of these planets indicate challenges and opportunities, respectively. For example, let's say our hypothetical Capricorn Pisces person has Uranus in Libra in the 7th house, likely trine their south node and sextile their north node. In the past, they would have felt a particular need to assert their individuality in relationships, but felt conflicted about this and flip-flopped between striking out and appeasing their partner. They still carry this urge into this life, making the lessons of their Leo North Node even more important. Even so, the harmonious aspect Uranus is making to the nodes indicates this placement is not entirely hurtful. In fact, it concentrates their individuality, Uranus, on their one-on-one relationships, 7th house, and they likely attract unusual partners who challenge them to express their uniqueness, too. Meanwhile, let's say their Sun is conjunct their midheaven in the 10th house. This makes their need to lead in public even more essential to their well-being, but at the expense of having fun. This person may tend to be dry and serious. Their North Node in Leo in the 5th is inviting them to lighten up and express themselves. It would be the task of many lifetimes to interpret every possible configuration of Big Three, nodal aspects, and nodal rulers in combination with each nodal placement. It has taken me many years just to write these 144 ebooks on the signs and houses of the nodes. But I hope this example has given you a clue of how to suss out any additional challenges or blocks your particular chart may represent. If you're not sure, I recommend finding an astrologer who specializes in the nodes and can interpret your chart specifically. If and when I am personally available, I will make it known on the website. Famous North Node Leo 5th House individuals. Learning about the lives and choices of your fellow travelers can help you see both healthy and unhealthy ways of leveraging your South Node wisdom and pursuing your North Node purpose. Demi Moore, Dave Garn, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, Greta Garbo, Sheryl Crow, Boy George, Joe Pesci, Henri Desiree Landru, Bryce Dallas Howard, Sam Shepard, Regina Spektor, Lin-Manuel Miranda, Connor Robust, Blaise Sandra, Miss Cheyenne, Bobcat Goldthwait, Matthias Schweighofer, Gerard Majax, Valerie Perrine, Kimberly Conrad, Leila Kador-Budati, Prince Constantine Alexios of Greece and Denmark, Sophie Fontenelle, Bobby Womack, Eric von Monstein, Bulent Esavit, Leah Coker, Richard II of England, Georges Bernanos, Judith Durham, Antil Dorati, Jacqueline Tomei Patenita, John DeLorean, Virginia Johnson,